Hello, good evening, everybody. My name's Mary Pettigrew, and I'm with the communications team of Empower Our Future. And as we always do, but especially since yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day, I will read the land acknowledgement. And we acknowledge with respect as non-Native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands and make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that our government, academic, and cultural institutions and our nation itself were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of settler colonialism, oppression, and inequities, and to recognize the hundreds of Indigenous nations who continue to resist, live, create, and uphold their sacred relations across these lands. Let us seek to understand what it means to be in right relationship today with the traditional stewards of this land and with the land itself and with all the creatures that inhabit it. So getting started, I am pleased to introduce someone many of you may know, Mr. Joe Breddan, who will facilitate tonight's forum. Joe had a career in systems engineering and management. He's a self-described longtime eco-freak who historically focused on public lands, but has largely shifted to climate and energy for the last decade or more. And so again, Joe, thank you so much for guiding us tonight. It's all you.
Okay, well, thanks. All right, well, and on behalf of Empower Our Future and our partner organization, Clean Energy Action, we want to extend sincere thanks to the candidates for not just for being here, but for their interest in serving Boulder on City Council. And for you guys watching online, that's an applause line. And of course, welcome to all you guys too. Being on council isn't an easy job, and you don't get rich doing it. So we appreciate it. Empower Our Future, for you all who don't know, is a Boulder-based coalition of organizations and individuals interested in clean local power. All right, let's get rolling. So get started with folks introducing themselves, and Terri gets to lead off. 1:15.
All right. Thank you so much to Empower Our Future for hosting this event and giving us the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Terri Brncic. My last name is Croatian. It's a bit of a mouthful. I moved to Boulder from San Francisco 9 years ago with my husband, Brian, and our two sons who are now students at Boulder High School. I'm a CFO and a CPA by training, and I've spent the past 25 years providing financial leadership to startup companies. I was inspired to run for city council through my involvement on the Safe Zones for Kids ballot initiative, which I joined out of concern for the escalating safety situation around Boulder High School. There are a number of challenges that I'd like to tackle if I'm elected to council, particularly around the intersecting issues of affordable housing, homelessness, and public safety. But the reality is that if we don't get a handle on our climate crisis, these other problems are going to pale in comparison over time. Boulder has consistently demonstrated leadership in climate action, and I'm hopeful that we will continue to set a model for the rest of the nation and the world as we transition to the next phase of our response. I look forward to speaking with you tonight and really sharing some of my thoughts on how we can tackle these problems. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. And next we got Jenny.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Jenny Robbins, running for Boulder City Council. I have lived in Colorado for 7 years, in Boulder for about 5.5. I have two daughters who are 11 and 13 and attend a BVSD public school. My professional background is in contract negotiation and land use and zoning. Personally, I'm a community activist who has been working with local organizations since I arrived in Boulder. I find great joy in helping people in need. I've had 2 Girl Scout troops with 28 girls for the last 6 years. And even through the struggles of our youth today, they have stuck with me to complete some pretty amazing environmental and community projects over the last 6 years. I'm an advocate for youth and families, affordable housing, safety, local environment, sustainability. I'm a supporter of the arts and small business. My family owns a small business here in Boulder. I became involved in city government because I was concerned about some of the things I saw happening throughout the city. I don't think the current council has done enough on environmental matters, affordable housing, or public safety. The council really needs to start considering the environment in every decision that it makes. And I am excited to be involved in the solutions that make Boulder all we know it can be.
Good timing. Aaron, you're next.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Neyer. I am running for city council because I think that Boulder is doing some really amazing things, and I want to be a part of making that more amazing. And I want to address where we can go a little better. So I have a background in technology. Recently worked at Google for 2 years as a software engineer. During my time at Google, I was very involved in our internal climate community, working on how we can put more side hours in Google onto climate focused solutions and doing a lot of networking around different climate technology spaces. I also have a huge background in nature connection, having experience with permaculture design, with nature meditation, and having a master's degree in ecopsychology from Naropa. So I think most of our solutions come from listening deeply to nature and learning from nature and how we help create resilient, regenerative environments. Earlier this year, I attended the Bioneers Conference and got to see Leah Stokes and Dan Kennedy speak on how this decade can be the charging 20s and how one of the things we really need to do is electrify our infrastructure. So I'm excited to see how we can move Boulder forward to electrify our infrastructure and move towards regenerative solutions all around.
You guys are good on the time. Okay, Jacques, you're up.
Hi there, I'm Jacques Decalo, born and raised in Boulder. I'm a lifelong environmentalist. I was raised on Boulder's conservation and early ingenuity of our open space tax really paved the way for me to find my place in the environmental world. Went to Western Washington University, where I studied sustainability and social justice. Moved back to Colorado in 2019, right around the time of the start of the pandemic. And one of the first things I noticed when moving back was the air quality in Colorado and how it had gone hill since I'd left. I didn't recognize parts of town, parts of Boulder. It had been developed and kind of transformed into a way that I didn't really recognize. And I decided to run for city council to make Boulder more sustainable. I believe that Boulder has been a gold standard or a green standard for a while. We've kind of fallen off of that, and I think it's important that we get back on track with implementing more solar, more battery storage, retrofits, reducing heating from reducing our fossil fuel usage, reducing greenhouse gases from transportation, just kind of all around making sure that Boulder can be more sustainable.
Thanks. And we've got Waylon up next.
Hey friends, my name is Waylon Lewis, born and raised in Boulder. I biked most of my childhood, and I've got a little bit of show and tell here. I was on the board of New Era, Colorado when we helped the municipalization fight. I don't know if you can read that. It says Stop Excel. I'm still a fan of Stopping Excel. I feel like, you know, the progress we need to make very quickly in terms of combating climate change. We're basically, you know, riding on 4 flat tires as long as we're working with Excel in the driver's seat. I'm, you know, personally, Jacques and I were discussing, I have gray water in my house. I have solar. I have a white roof. I don't have a car. This is a passion. I met with some folks today and discussed how homelessness may be the urgent issue of this cycle, taking up all the oxygen in the room, understandably, public safety. Climate change is the #1 issue, long-term, short-term, all time. It's existential. It's coming for us, our children. We've already seen it with Marshall fires and floods. My independent 22-year business here won green coverage nationally twice, and I'm out of time.
That's good. Okay. Next up, Ryan, what you got?
Good evening. My name is Ryan Schuchard. Pronouns are he, him. I am running for city council on a climate platform. I started working full-time on climate action in 2007, soon after I became awakened to the climate crisis as a Peace Corps volunteer. I spent nearly a decade working to build the movement for climate in corporate governance and business strategy at Business for Social Responsibility. Then I got really excited about transportation and energy and joined CalSTART, which is the nation's leading consortium of clean transportation technology organizations, and became the policy director. Spent multiple years leading cycles of legislative, appropriations, and regulatory action. And as I became to read more into the climate science and learn more about our needs for a just transition, become an even bigger fan and champion of electrification of everything, while also sharpening my focus on creating more human-connected, transit-rich communities. Today, I'm a member of the Transportation Advisory Board, through which making climate more integrated into our transportation policy and the nexus with energy is one of my key goals. I'm also a dad of 2 small girls. Look forward to talking about how we can use a climate opportunity to make Boulder safer, affordable, and more inclusive. Thanks.
Okay. And Tara, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Tara Weiner. I have been on city council for 2 years. I remember this very forum, which I was describing earlier, made me the most nervous because at that time I knew the least. So first of all, I'm very thankful for Empower Our Future. I'm your future. I am very excited about our climate initiatives department. Sorry, guys, that was Empower Our Future, but it's also Empower Your Future, actually. We just need to empower it. And I'm also really happy to be with these candidates who know so much about the environment. And in these weeks, months that we have been doing these forums, I've learned so much. So about myself is I have a job that absolutely does not help the climate crisis in any way. And I've had it for like 35 years. Plus, I grew up in Brooklyn that was built on a garbage dump across the street from garbage. So what I do know is I came here because of the clean air and the mountains, just like so many other people. My hobbies are reading dystopian novels on the climate and hoping that it doesn't become like that here, but as well as breathing clean air. My focus on city council has been on mental health, on cheerleading for e-bikes, and on my love for trees.
Okay. Tina, you get to bat cleanup on the first round.
Okay, thank you so much for hosting this forum and also for providing the different information sheets about community choice. It was really helpful for me to learn about it. My name is Tina Marquis, and I'm running for city council with the priorities of more affordable housing, meeting our climate goals, and also creating safer public spaces in our downtown and in our transportation. Just a fun fact about me, I was the president of an environmental action club at my school that I went to in college. And that was back in the very early 1990s. And our focus was really on like hairspray and how that was going to hurt the carbon layer. So things have changed a lot, and there's a lot more exciting things that we can do as a community to help build our climate resilience and create a better climate future. So I'm very excited. 2 years ago, I finished 2 terms on the school board, where I had a lot of experience in the development of policy, as well as legislative advocacy for the goals of the school district. That included environmental work. You might be familiar with the work of Gita Carroll, who's done so much for our district. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Okay, well, so on to the questions. So the first one is, we know that city council virtually always has a lot on its plate. And the question is whether you think clean energy and climate issues have been given the appropriate amount of council's attention recently. You probably know that a good part of this audience is probably like to see more attention on these. But if you don't necessarily agree with that, you might mention something about what priorities you think might get squeezed too much if this is more of a priority. And if you do agree, then you might say what specific clean energy and climate issues that you think should be elevated. Jenny, you're first up on this one.
That's a big question for a minute 15, but I will start by saying that I said it in my intro that I don't believe that this council has done enough on environmental matters. Some of the things that I think that they have done is, to start with the positive, is, doing the natural gas. Later on this year, they're going to be looking at our energy codes and figuring out ways to fix those. In there, they're going to be looking at natural gas and some carbon reductions with our lawn equipment and things like that. So again, small start. Holistically though, we need to be looking at adjusting our policies to include better composting, natural climate solutions like tree canopies, shifting our transportation mindset, adaptive reuse when it comes to planning. I'm big on vertical gardens, green and white roofs, a lot of small things that can make a big difference. In that, I also believe that we need to talk about community education from a lifestyle standpoint and things that people can do just at home in order to help with climate change, climate action.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, what do you got to say on the subject?
Yeah, so I think I'll start by saying, yes, we need to do more. We all need to do more, especially on climate. As long as we're doing climate with a social justice lens, I think that's absolutely necessary. And one reason why I'm sad that Taisha isn't here, because she hits that better than anybody. So yes, more on climate with an equity lens. I do feel happy about what a lot of things that our city is already doing. I think I've gotten to know some of the people in climate initiatives and natural solutions. And there's a lot of really good collaboration happening. What came out with the Cool Boulder campaign is great because it's involving more of the city and more of local nonprofits. So we need to do that. And while that's all good, we're not doing enough. We definitely need to do more. We need to push more on where we're going with energy. We need to be more bold with the kind of commitments we make towards moving towards a regenerative and renewable future. So I want to see council being a lot more bold with that and being willing to pull the resources together to make sure that we move towards that. And again, more natural solutions. Let's really continue to lift up projects like Cool Boulder, plant more pollinators, get more connected canopies, get more absorbent landscapes, do all of that while being more bold.
Thank you. And Jacques, you're up.
Yeah, so I think Boulder definitely needs to do more. I think there should be solar mandates for all new developments. We need to increase battery storage technology to further remove us from the grid. We have to go in and help lower income households make these transitions as well, because they're the ones who are affected the most from XL increasing the cost of utilities. We really have to hold XL's feet to the fire. I know we have an option in 2025 to opt out of that franchise agreement, and I think we should take full advantage of that and push XL to say, hey, we're thinking about dropping you. What are you going to do? Are you going to put solar on all these vacant rooftops that we have? Are you going to help out our low income residents make the transition to electric heating instead of fossil fuel heating? And I think we also have to look at embodied carbon. A lot of people in Boulder, they buy a house, tear it down, and build these kind of mini mega mansions. And I think we should have an embodied carbon tax to reduce the environmental impact of redevelopment. And we also have to look at redevelopment and infill of vacant office spaces for increased housing options instead of building new developments. And also for new developments, we should not be allowing them to do green lawns. We should be mandating that they have pollinator plants.
Thanks. Okay, Terri.
Yeah, well, I'll echo that sentiment, is that we can always be doing more. At the council level, obviously, we will be talking at great length about the XL contract and using the leverage we have on the off-ramps there to push them to move quicker on the goals. I think we should also at the council level be throwing our support behind the CCE initiative. And really meeting with the legislators at the state to make sure that that goes through. But at the local level, I think we need to collaborate with the climate initiatives team and the planning department to really get a clear understanding of what policy changes we could be making to move the needle here. climate initiatives team is just phenomenal and has so many good ideas and are working so well together. And I, in talking with them yesterday, they talked about the fact that they look to the council to provide cover with the community and really an education kind of scaffolding that we can, as they're pursuing land management policies like controlled burns or prescribed grazing, that we as the council can be really socializing those ideas with the community to make sure that they're accepted. Same thing around enforcing policies. If they start hardening structures for fire resistance, we can be the bad guys to really make sure that that gets done properly.
Okay, thank you. Let's see where we're, Tara.
So as you know, I'm already on city council, and these ideas are all great, but you all know about city council. We get a packet filled up with 3 or 4 things. We have to read hundreds of pages. And frankly, I don't even know what's going to happen next week until maybe 4 days in advance, because we have so many meetings. And so in my dream, I think Waylon said it exactly right. Thank you, Waylon. We get overwhelmed with the crises that we have, especially in drug addiction and mental health crises and homelessness, and the amount of people that are falling into homelessness. And then the most important thing, which obviously is climate change and the climate crisis, we don't always get to talk about because we already get a predetermined packet. But if I had my dream, well, first of all, we've done fire mitigation, a lot of it, because we're, on the WUI, and yay for me for learning acronyms. And so we've done a lot with fire. We've done a fair amount with building electrification. We always think about climate equity. And a good example of that is when we discuss gas leaf blowers, doing something immediately. We just have a lot of people that have small businesses that are some of our more marginalized communities. And we wanted to give them some time to be able to afford to figure out, for us to have, incentives and give them financial help.
And Tina?
Yeah, I have been impressed with the work the city is doing, and my job on council is to make sure that they can continue doing their work and meeting our goals that we set in 2019. And I think the other piece is a lot of our goals are expensive, as well as the different goals around electrification and climate that you see in the legislative platform that the Boulder City Council created last year. So a lot of it is requests for funding at the state and federal level. I'll fully support those requests, which will enable us to offer more rebates for electrification, create the infrastructures and the climate resistant building that we need. And then climate and meeting our goals is one of my top 3 priorities. So that means that I'll be committing to budget those priorities and making sure that the work happens. And on the equity piece, it is really hard. I just electrified my house and I have an electric car. I have paid $20 to Excel every month. It was just very expensive to do that, and making sure that all people have that opportunity to have to be stable outside of Excel's price increases. Thanks.
Thank you. And Waylon?
Yeah, the equity conversation is vital, but it's also vital to get the equity conversation right. Today, I don't know if everyone smelled the burnt air. When we have toxic smoke days, it's an equity issue in terms of climate crisis, that those who have to work outside, say they're painting houses, they don't have the option to go inside. I have an air filter running right now inside. So, stopping transitioning, for example, to electric leaf blowers, let alone rakes, out of equity is a misunderstanding of equity concerns. The people operating the leaf blowers are breathing in so much poison. An hour of leaf blowing is equivalent to an $1,100-mile car trip. We have to get this right. We should be supplying free electric leaf blowers, not allowing them to continue to use, if we care about equity. That's just one example of 1,000 where I think me and several other candidates here are going to be, no pun intended, fired up to get this right and quickly, whether it's about transportation, solar, people talking about partnering with Excel or working with Excel. They are not a partner. We need to dump this horse cart over and start again. And I'm happy to communicate that to the public.
Okay, thanks to all of you guys. Go ahead.
Okay, the answer is yes, yes, and no. Yes, answering this question, I am standing on the shoulders of giants in this community who have spent 20, 30, 40, and more years working to build the climate movement. That includes people who have spent a decade or more on the Excel initiative and over $20 million that have built a community of climate action, of which are associated around this organization. Also, yes, current council, majority of the council members are climate enthusiasts, and the majority of our work plan items are consistent with serious climate action. No, leadership from a governance standpoint is not picking issues. It's not deciding a few things we want. It's asking the question, how do we get to the goal, whether it's the 2035 to zero or it's 2040 net positive, and what do we need to do to get there? And we answer this question by first asking the question to staff. Staff, what politically is in your way that council needs to work on? Number two, what now is our ownership of that in terms of a strategy that we council now are going to work on? And then three, how, when we see our daily or our weekly business coming to us, are we screening what we're doing for climate risk and opportunity? That's what leadership looks like. That's what we need to get to.
Okay, thanks. Okay, again, this is a bit of a follow-up, but and you guys have already addressed a fair amount of this, but let's try to drill a little deeper. I think Empower Our Future is focused on addressing climate change by reducing emissions from all sectors, including clean energy, building codes to phase out gas, and transportation. So what, if any of these areas, would you likely encourage council to prioritize and focus on? And what specific policies would you promote to accomplish emissions reductions in these or other areas? So we've got Aaron up first on this round.
Cool. Yeah, this is a really good question. I think first off, I'll say that I don't think all the right answers here. So I'll give as much as I can. I think one of the things that's most important right now is the timeliness. There's a huge potential to accelerate a lot of this with what was just passed with the Inflation Reduction Act. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a huge amount of funds that we can funnel. And so I think what's important is to connect with the experts who know how to do that, connect with Rewiring America, all these movements who are focused on how do we use those funds, and make sure that the policy that we pass is effectively moving people to use those funds. So I think that's where we need to start from that space. Yeah, I think really from what I've talked to from people who know a lot more, one of the biggest things we need to do right now is put in heat pumps. Heat pumps are a way more efficient thing than AC and traditional heating. So let's move towards heat pumps. Let's also see if we can get more geothermal, because all of that is really effective solutions. So yeah, that's what I would say. Let's start with things like that, and then let's weave with the experts and Rewiring America and see where the highest things are that we can use the funds that are coming in now.
Thanks. Jacques?
Yeah, so we need to do a lot. One thing, looking at our city infrastructure as we go in and end up replacing these natural gas pipelines, is also replacing the water pipelines at the same time and reducing our carbon impact from tearing up our streets as much as possible. Our infrastructure is pretty outdated, so I'd like to see us try and lump this together and just try and progress this as quick as possible. We need to look at the building materials we're using and prioritize sustainable building materials that reduce energy costs and are more energy efficient. We need to increase energy retrofits, and then also help with workforce training to promote more sustainable retrofits and assist in the lower income households and make sure that they are able to get these retrofits to be more energy efficient. We really have to prioritize more solar across the city. That's a huge thing that's easily obtainable. And also we need to address the city issues, city buildings that are wasting energy. That's a huge issue. Like the rec center, for example, we need to retrofit city buildings that are a huge waster of energy.
Great, thank you. Waylon?
Yeah, I'd say how long do you have, except that's clear. Climate obviously intersects with every aspect of our life here, whether in a negative way or in a positive way. So we have to tackle everything. Luckily, we're gifted in this town with experts on every single front. So, you know, as Aaron pointed out last night in the forum, it could have been earlier today for all I know. We need to listen and get that input of experts in instead of folks like Leslie having to swim up water, upstream. We need to be bringing those experts in and acting on it. And that'll take coalition building, which I and many others here are passionate about. We need to make real progress because to Tara's very fair point, it's an overwhelming list of duties every single week. And there's always going to be urgent distractions and events that come up. So whether it's protected bike lanes, it's embarrassing how few we have in Boulder compared to other cities at this point. I remember when Boulder used to be ahead on everything. All right, I'm out of time again. So short stories, just do whatever Leslie says.
Jenny.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna disagree with a few of my esteemed counterparts here. The last work plans and the last council priorities that came out were accessory dwelling units, inclusionary housing, zoning for affordable housing, middle income housing, homeless stay shelter, occupancy reform, Boulder Junction Phase 2, Area 3 Planning Reserve election, and then the CAN. None of those had the environment in mind. None of them are environmentally focused work plans. So to answer the question, I think what we should do is we should focus on exploring the CCE or leveraging our partnership with Excel to truly get to net zero by 2030. I think that's what's most important. We have to focus on renewables from a large scale standpoint. And at the end of the day, we really need to stop burning stuff.
All right, Tara, what are your thoughts?
My first thought is I didn't even finish the last question. So I'm going to finish that first really quickly and say, no, I don't think the city does enough on any level. So just to be clear on that. I would say that I just want to say that my thoughts being in the last 2 years is I look at TVAP 1, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's the building that we did right by 30th and Pearl. And I personally don't see enough trees, enough soil, but I see a lot of concrete, right by the transit village there. So we're having a TVAP 2. And I am determined to make sure that we have more trees and more soil and less concrete. For me, that's beside, and biking has been the other thing, of course, that I'm assuming you're going to ask more about later. But for me, really looking at some of these city plans that they have and saying, whoa, what is happening here? We need to do better. But lastly, I want to say that my other dream would be that you guys would call us and say, such and such is coming up. You should do this, that Leslie would call me or all of us council members and say, can you pay attention to this and that? Because believe me, things do go fast and we need you guys to really be there and to keep pushing in that direction. So like I said before, we don't get so overwhelmed that climate isn't first and it should always be first.
Tina, you get to go next.
Yeah, so there are a couple ways I would approach this question. And the first would be asking our staff and our partners like Empower Our Future on what we can focus on to get the biggest gains or biggest decreases in carbon. And there, just even our data dashboard that the city provides that shows you emissions by sector is a place to start when we think about where we can focus and get the biggest improvement in our climate. So I would like to look at that locally in terms of how accessible and how easy it is to change sectors and look at where the biggest opportunities are. The second is to understand where regionally we can plug in and make the most impact. We have a ton of priorities on our legislative platform, and I think we might want to think about prioritizing a few that are attainable and have a big impact for us. And for instance, there's one around eliminating new fracking licenses that could maybe have a big impact. And that's a little bit easier to achieve than some of the other goals. So that would be my framework for thinking about it.
Okay, thank you. Terri and Ryan, don't worry, I got you there going last. But Terry's up next.
Yeah, so I think what I would go after is the in-commuting problem, if you will. We've got 50,000 or so folks that are coming into work every day. Not only is it an environmental burden, but it's also a factor that, we don't have the affordable housing to meet these folks' needs. So, I think I read somewhere that 37% of emissions are coming from transportation sources. Big low-hanging fruit that we should be going after. The housing that we're building right now is not meeting the needs of these folks. So we need to dust off and create the housing survey similar to what we did 10 years ago, get a much better understanding of the types of housing and price points that these folks need, so we can build a targeted roadmap that will ensure we're building housing that will satisfy that problem and reduce that number. And then once we've created that roadmap, we really need to develop a targeted metrics and goals so that we can measure ourselves and make sure that we actually are making some dents in that number. The added benefit of having that survey is that we then have the footprint of our in-commuting population as well, and we can design our regional transit population or transportation system to meet their needs.
Okay, Ryan. You're up next on this one.
Okay, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the world's top scientific authority on climate, as folks might know, in the executive summary of the 4,000-page report that we recently saw come out, spring 2022, of the state of science, puts space-efficient, compact development with people being able to walk and use transit and then electrify all the buildings. This is like at the top of the list in terms of greatest potential, greatest co-benefit, greatest equity contribution. Now, we could get into the details about what to do, but I actually think that getting into the details is part of the problem of council, and it's one of the reasons why we're not moving faster. We need to be more focused at a higher level, and one reason is because we have an action plan from 2021 that our expert staff put together, and we need to ask the question, staff, how can we support you? So my approach to this, I'll say two things if I have time. One, we need to follow the science, trust staff, but let's keep checking with the science. Next, enable staff, ask what they need, give them the resources. Third, be willing to convene and to lead and to use Boulder's platform to lead. Now, quickly, I'm going to say we have to avoid, then shift, then improve. That's a framework from IPCC. Electrify everything is in the middle of that. But first, we have to avoid energy by stepping down our cost requirements and our energy requirements. Big amount of time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Third question, that in 2020, Boulder backed off of its municipalization effort, and pretty much at the same time entered into both a partnership agreement with Xcel to reduce Boulder's emissions and a 20-year franchise agreement with discretionary off-ramps at 5-year intervals. What I'm hearing on the partnership agreement is that there's not much to show for it, almost 3 years in. And that leaves a little over 2 years from the first off-ramp on the franchise agreement. So the question is, would you consider taking that off-ramp? What are your inclinations now, and what specific indicators would you be tracking in the next 2 years to inform your decision in 2025? Jacques, how about leading off on that one?
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so I would be in favor of looking at community choice energy, as opposed there are other companies that want to sell their energy to Boulder. Xcel is not the only one who wants to sell their energy to us. In the next 2 years, I really think we should hold Xcel accountable and say, look, we have this to keep you with us, or this to move away from you. And I think that to keep with Xcel is, how much are they going to provide for us? How much solar are they going to implement? How much are they going to actually reduce our carbon footprint? And it's shown that they haven't really been willing to do anything. So I'm more in favor of going off the ramp and following suits of Fort Collins, Steamboat, other cities. And I think the best thing is we can go to market and find the best fit for Boulder and find a company that would provide us with the most options for renewable energy or lower utility costs, so that our lower income residents aren't getting the burden of struggling to pay for their utility. Xcel, they're planning to spend $2.5 billion in shifting their natural gas and methane systems. And I think we should just move away from those and go completely electric and not support them investing in that infrastructure.
And Waylon, you're up next.
Thank God, it's hard to wait on this one. I remember progressive friends of mine a couple years ago saying, you know what, we've fought Excel for too long. They just keep fighting. It's not worth it anymore. Let's partner with them. It's infuriating. I think a year or two later, the Marshall fires happened. Nothing's more expensive than climate crisis. It's going to devastate our food systems, our ability to go, our kids to play soccer outside, to go dine out in West End. It's going to be devastating if insurance companies pull out. Partnering with Excel is like, partnering with Ford Motors on bike lanes or something. It's just going to be a slow road to nowhere fast. I don't think Excel is evil. I think they're transparently looking to make profits. They're doing very well at that. I think, they're doing a little green here and there. I would add the word washing to the end of most of that. It's, municipalization is something that's been done in conservative cities, in liberal cities. It's been done everywhere. If Boulder can't do it, why the heck do we think Boulder is special? Let's make sure Boulder is special and an example to other cities, and let's actually combat climate change. And I'm fired up about it.
Okay. Ryan, you don't have to wait that long on this round.
So this is one of these questions where there's the policy question, and then there's like, okay, what's it really going to cost us in practice? On the policy side, I guess as a kind of theoretical framework, I'd say, this is tricky if we're talking about deep decarbonization and resilience. And how do we get there? And in general, and not to Excel specifically, but in general, there is a case to having large scale investors that create scale and decarbonization. They have the power to do it. And that's one reason why, that power around the US is one reason why we've seen costs go down. On the other hand, it's, having a corporate investor-owned utility has not, proven to be extremely satisfactory for Boulder. It's not proven to be for a lot of other towns and states. And also, there's more going on here. There's our right to energy, and our right to liberty, and to using our home systems locally and having control. So we need both in general. I'm a fan of diversification and trying to do both together. Having said all that, I'm not super excited about the direction of Excel. I do worry about the legal and huge costs we might get into if we back out. But I'd really like to explore looking at it with respect to our overall goals and how we need to go to get there and how we're doing at that next juncture.
Aaron?
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad that there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me on this issue. This issue is pretty new to me. But yeah, I've heard a lot of intelligent voices that point out a lot of the issues with what's happening with Excel. And in general, my philosophy is that the greatest climate solutions are going to come through localization. We have to bring things back at a local level. We have to do it with our food systems. We have to do that with all of our systems. And right now, when you have this like national corporation coming in and doing it, what happens is the wealth gets funneled out of our community. And we need to bring the wealth back in and build wealth in our community. And building that wealth in our community is also going to enable us to take our energy future into our own hands. So not only is wealth being extracted, but also our agency to affect how we make energy decisions is being lost. So I would be very much in favor of us working to bring solutions that give people choice and bring our energy to a local level, working with local energy providers, again, working to generate more of our own energy through renewables so we can bring that back to a local level to build wealth in our community and take our agency back into our own hands.
Thanks. And Tina?
Yeah, I've been here for 21 years, and I remember when I thought we were getting a muni, and it was really exciting. I remember thinking a lot about how there were people who said, well, that's going to be really hard to manage. How can Boulder do it? And well, we already manage our water, and we have fabulous water. Our city has experience in managing systems. So I believe that we should absolutely look at the CCE option for Boulder. It's already being worked on, and I think we're going to have that option. I would have preferred a muni because it's been successful in other towns, and it gives, to Aaron's point, that local control over the energy, and also might help with some of the equity issues when you go into a competitive environment. And my background is a little bit heavier in education, but with charter schools, you'll see that charter schools serve half as many kids with special needs and fewer low-income kids. And that's because it's harder to serve. When we think about these competitive energy buying, I just want to make sure that we're focused on serving all people, including those that might be less convenient to serve, that might have fewer resources, and might need help with their energy bills and all that. Thanks.
Thanks. Terri, we've got you up next.
Okay, I think it's important that we know we can exit the franchise agreement without actually having to commit to municipalization or the CCE. We'd still be on Excel. We'd lose some of the benefits around the undergrounding commitments that they've made to us. So, that allows us, I think, some flexibility here to not be, taking a massive leap. What it does is gives us the flexibility to see how the CCEs are playing out and really understand much better what the financial structure would look like, what the exit fees would look like, how we would make that work in terms of replacing the undergrounding benefits that we're getting. So, it really is just ultimately giving us a lot of flexibility as we move forward and see the changes on the CCE landscape. So I think these off-ramps are critical leverage points. They obviously should be designed to, put Excel on notice that they need to meet the commitments in the franchise and the partnership agreement. And as we approach the termination next year, we should be really pushing on them to make this real threat that if they don't make good, we will consider this option, because it really isn't that onerous for us to go off franchise.
Hey, Jenny, you're up next.
Okay. I think that before committing to exit the agreement in 2025, we need to take a look at where we stand with carbon reductions, where Excel is with the rates, where we are with the undergrounding. Have they failed to meet their commitments and reliability overall? I would wonder, in 2 years, how they're doing with their partnership group. I think that we need to have way more transparency from Excel. And so I would be curious to see how we're doing in 2 years in all of those categories. At this point, I think that right now it's good to have the franchise agreement to leverage for further carbon reduction. But at the end of the day, 80% is not good enough. We need to be at 100% by 2030, as that's our goal. Overall, it appears that a CCE would provide lower cost, faster decarbonization, more innovation. And I'm closely watching the legislation that Judy Mobley's bringing forward this session. I'm hoping that gets passed to give us that push that we need. And if we're going to consider planning for the CCE, which I support, I think that we need to start planning for it now.
Okay, and batting cleanup on this one is Tara.
There's nothing quite like a monopoly to make sure prices are high. So my one expert area is what I do for a living is working with suppliers and selling imprinted promotional products. If there was only one factory that printed reusable bags, they would be so expensive. But we have competition, and competition is what brings price down. So I would say, for me, it is remember Ma Bell? Who remembers Ma Bell? They said at the time that we monopolized the phone company, that it could never work. But guess what? It did work. So I think we need to be able to have we need to say, yes, we have an off ramp, but we're not going to have any leverage. And then we need to not be kidding around with it either. So yes, everybody's ideas have been great. Excel's pace has been way too slow. They're just too slow. If you want to get really depressed, you can look at right on the Empower Your Future .org/Excel-City of Boulder -oversight. If you want to get depressed and see that in 2022, the Colorado fuel mix is pathetic. So no, I don't think they're going to meet their goals. And I think we need to know that ahead of time and prepare for the future.
Okay, thanks. Moving beyond the city level, Boulder's official positions have been influential at the county, regional, state, and even national levels. Empower Our Future's top priority is enabling state legislation for community choice energy. And maybe I ought to say, for folks listening that may not know what that is, basically it's sometimes called Muni Light. And it means you're not taking on the whole ball of wax, but not the distribution system, but you do get to choose who you're buying the energy from, the generation. Okay, so the question is, do you support CCE, and what other issues or legislations would you encourage Boulder to support at the state or other levels? And I think we got Waylon going first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of becoming Excel's like #1 enemy, I think we need to treat this seriously. Climate isn't theoretical and it's not future tense. I think any and all is my answer here. We need to make progress. I mean, for years, Excel has restricted the amount of solar, restricted our use of battery storage. You know, the recent conversation, which Terri reminded me about, it's the only reason I attended, with Leslie and Excel was infuriating. How many times did the CEO of Excel say, I disagree with your premise? I mean, I think it was literally 5 times. I felt like I was watching like a comedy, a tragic comedy. So I've probably half forgotten what the question is, but like, let's do this. And, if Excel wants to be our partner and we hold their feet to the fire, fine, but I don't see it happening. It's a dysfunctional relationship, and climate crisis is urgent and serious. So sorry if I failed to answer the question, but I'm fired up.
Okay. Ryan.
Yes, excuse me, 100% support the CCE bill, the legislation. I'd like to work to help make that happen. Hopefully get that done. Like to help with the work on phasing out fracking at the state level, and also on the carbon capture nuclear work, or at least with carbon capture specifically. Sorry, I mean on the carbon capture. Sorry, a bit of a dizzy here. So this is a false solution. I mean, you've got it in the briefing there, the doc there, but this is an industry-led idea that will just continue to forestall, actual work. So I'd love to push that out of the realm of options that municipalities or counties or whatever the state is considering as part of our climate plan. There's a lot bigger picture at the state level we could do. I suppose, like if I were going to swing for the fence, I'd say let's work towards winding down Tabor and winding up a cap and trade system so we can get some real resources here to do things. I mean, this is one of the big things standing in our way is a kind of a lacking regulatory system that is just allowing the externalities to continue to fall and also fall into communities that have been hit the most and continue to be hit. So yeah, let's work on those more structural solutions at the state level to create more resources.
Thanks. Tara, what you got on this one?
One of the finishing on my monopoly rage, one of the ways to solve that is by CCEs, which I'm very excited about. So I called Judy Amabile today because we work on a few other things, and I have an update from her because she met with the governor and they have concerns the effect that this will have on grid reliability and resiliency for the whole state. People are worried, what is Excel going to say, right? And are they going to make it hard for us? They're worried at the governor level that we would have backup capacity to get us through disasters. And another thing is the unions also, they're not going to be that excited to lose their job. So we have to work with the unions as well. And according to Judy, it's not going to be a walk in the park. There is going to be resistance to this, to the CCE, which is our sort of dream come true when it comes to having competition in utilities. So I say we continue to support her in every way we can on the local level and see where we can support her and the other people that are working on this bill. And that's what I feel about that.
Okay, Jacques.
Yeah, so like everybody else, I am in favor of CCE. Look forward to that bill being presented and hopefully passed. And our city needs to work with our city lobbyists to support and get it passed as well. And we need to make sure that all hands are on deck for that. It's important so that Excel doesn't monopolize our energy choices anymore, and that we have that choice in our own hands. And I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer because we would still be able to use the distribution network that Excel has, and it would just be a little bit more efficient and more sustainable, create more equity. And we need workforce training as well that ensures that we can make transitions on the other side of retrofits. So we need to help provide opportunities and give people an option to switch over if they're not working for Excel, that they can still work in some sort of energy system or be trained for the next step of what we need in sustainable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Terri.
So yes, I 100% love this. I feel like it's a great compromise solution between a full municipal muni solution. You know, for me personally, sometimes when you look at the make or buy decision, doing the make can often come with a lot of hidden costs. So this is a really great way to kind of get part of that solution, but not all of it. I think having competition will drive serious pricing leverage and really enable us to take care of our low-income residents in a way that we can't do today. You know, as a numbers person, I would want to understand kind of the financial elements of this, because obviously we are taking on some cost. We'd need an administrative function to run it. We would have to rent the lines from Excel, and then we would have to rationalize the undergrounding work that Excel is doing for us currently. But provided we can get all of those things and get you know, acceleration on our climate goals and deliver cheaper energy to our residents, it's absolutely a win-win-win. So I think it's definitely worth looking into, and I'm excited to see, you know, as it progresses, what you know, what it looks like. I do know it works really well in California, so I'm hopeful that it could work here.
Okay. Aaron.
Yeah, I like what Terri said. I do think this is a nice balance between a lot of different things, and it's a win-win-win. Like we need to localize our energies. We need to address the pricing. And to do that, to address the pricing, like Tara said, we have to address the monopolization. So this gives people choice. Giving people choice lets capitalism do the things it's good at. You know, capitalism's bad at a lot of things, but there's a few things that it's good at. And this lets capitalism do one of the things it's good at, which is use competition to drive down prices. And so if we have choice, then there's a potential of helping the people. That's really good from a social justice equity lens. And then from the perspective of what the planet needs, again, I really think we need to localize, and that's not possible if we don't have choice. As soon as we have choice, we open doors for there to be other options, which creates more opportunities for, other more local energy providers. And the really important point, I think, in this is also it gets us out of that bubble. Like if we're just focused on muni energy in Boulder, we're helping Boulder, but we're not helping what's happening in all of Colorado. And we really need to be working at a statewide level to address this. And so any solution that's going to help us at a local level, but also support like the state is, I think, really good. So I'm a yes to CCE.
Okay, thank you. And Jenny?
Hi. Okay, so I would support CCE. As I mentioned before, you know, it appears to provide power at a lower cost, the options for faster decarbonization, more innovation. If we could really get power cheaper at 3 kilowatts an hour instead of 15, I think from an equity perspective, that is a huge win. You know, I support the legislation also, as I mentioned before. 1276 passed in 2020 also had my support. Locally, I would say that I support microgrids and virtual plants, you know, any sort of zero emission communities, and definitely from a policy perspective locally, looking at doing all electric in any new developments. What I think we would need to be careful of is any costs that we would bear by having stranded assets from Excel, and also grid reliability. So those are the two things that I think that we would need to look at as we make this path forward.
Okay, thank you. And Tina?
I do support the CCE, as I think I already stated, for many of the reasons that are being discussed here. I'm also connected with Judy Amabile, and really respect when a legislator starts presenting to you that there might be some obstacles, and thinking strategically, how can we support that legislator? Who else do we know that we can work with? In this case, we know that electrification is a goal for the state, I believe, and you know, they helped with the e-bikes and all that. So how do we connect the CCE to our goal of electrification? I think it's an easy argument to make, but would always want to be sensitive to how complicated these issues can be. That being said, you know, I've been finding myself on this campaign a lot of times saying things are complicated. But at the end of the day, we have to look over the complication and get the political will and the leadership to solve the problems. And with the environment in particular, I think we need to do that faster. So that would be my commitment if I were elected to city council.
Okay, thanks. That wraps up the questions. We're going to go to closing statements. And Tina, since you're on a roll, how about going first on this one?
Okay, I didn't know I was on a roll, but I'm glad to hear it. So again, I almost closed in my last statement that, again, this will ultimately be about leadership and prioritizing the environment. So I think we do need to address what is an existential crisis. CCE is part of that, and something, and one of the tools we're going to need to use to electrify our town. The other piece is, it is difficult when you're dealing with a monopoly, and there are a couple times during my school board days that we did deal with some big companies. We passed a sugar tax, and there was a lot of opposition from the soda manufacturers, but we passed the tax. The world did not end. We do not, you know, there's still soda in Boulder, and we now are able to distribute around $3.2 million worth of funds to different equity programs around the city. I also fought against the vaping companies, which are now basically big tobacco, about getting rid of flavored vapes for our teens. Again, we did it. We can be a voice, and we can push to fight for our values that have to do with the environment. And I think that we can, if we have the political will and we work together and we're smart and strategic and prioritize, we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tara, what are your last words for this evening?
Well, we didn't yet touch that much on e-bikes, and I want to say that in the 2 years that I've been on council, you know, you develop your areas that you really focus on. And for me, it's been e-bikes, because Ryan would say this, but I've been trying single-handedly to try to change our car culture to an e-bike culture, because as we've heard tonight, 37% of our GHGs come from the transportation sector. So some of the things that can help us change that is to make sure people feel safe on their bikes. So I've been going through the bike underpasses and making sure they're free from debris and any stuff, so people don't feel nervous going through a dark tunnel. I just got increased lighting in the bike underpasses, which I'm very excited about. And I've been really pushing for protected bike lanes. And also I want to in the next 2 years really focus on how to make it people feel comfortable to bring their bikes downtown without worrying that they're going to be stolen. Because if you go on Nextdoor, you'll hear a lot about that chatter. So how do you do that? It will be from bike valets, which we just started and are awesome, and better lock programs, talking to CU about educating the students who have a lot of bike theft, and in general, focusing on lowering bike theft so we can get more people on bikes and e-bikes.
Thank you. And let's see, Ryan next.
Okay, I'm gonna close this out with the thought on what I think is maybe the hardest and most important challenge for climate action in our coming years at the elected level. And it's to integrate 2 different things. And one of those is speed, and to speed things up, and not just to speed things up, but to learn from history and evidence, and how we can seed nonlinear change, movements, punctuated equilibrium, quick changes. In history, we have those events. They do happen. They happen with technology. They happen through culture. That's the kind of change that we, through our leadership in working with other cities, others and in states, and the federal action at the federal level, have a big opportunity. And we need to be thinking about that from an investment standpoint. Big, important priority. The second one is read the IPCC literature, and you'll see we need, in order to really activate change and also make it durable, we need a just transition, and that means equity. And that means we need to make sure that the people who are making these decisions is not just white homeowners. And frankly, a lot of the people that I spent my career working around. We need to find better ways to ensure that these questions are going to non-white communities who have been disadvantaged, and who are the kind of people that we want to be more represented and give more privilege and power to as we go forward. They need to be helping make decisions.
Thank you. And Waylon?
So yeah, I found it really heartening hearing from my competitors and colleagues and co-conspirators here. You know, this is urgent. We all say urgent, and then we move on and do 80 other things with our day. This is urgent, and it's going to become more and more urgent. To treat it urgently, I think, as Tina said, and then urgently left, apparently, you know, we need to work together to make this happen. There she is. So there's a quote I'd just like to share, since yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day. We are all children of the Great Spirit. We all belong to Mother Earth. Our planet is in great trouble, and if we keep carrying old grudges and do not work together, we will all die. Chief Seattle, who knew that very well. So, you know, as a city, we have a lot of grudges. We are not working together well. I'm someone who will work to bring us together. Maybe not perfectly. We're never gonna, you know, hug and dance in the meadow and sing Kumbaya, but we can work together. We can treat each other with respect and friendship, and treat this urgently by forming coalitions. My business, Elephant Journal, 13 million social fans, up to 30 million readers a month. I've done this, and I will work to communicate the urgency of this in a fun and pragmatic and compassionate way to Boulder citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. We got Jacques next.
Yeah, I think we really have to push to remove ourselves from the petrochemical companies all around, not just on fossil fuels, but also on single-use plastics. One thing, if elected to council, is I'd like to see us bring forward a single-use plastic, sort of incentivizing consumers to push away from single-use plastics, and also raising funds for the city to use for more environmental redevelopment, such as funding electric heat pumps for lower income households. Another thing I'd really like to see brought forward is gray water recycling. Had a great conversation with Waylon about it yesterday, how he has his washing machine watering his trees. I think that's awesome. But I think we need to take that a step forward, and all new developments should have gray water recycling. I think that's something that we should mandate. We've been very lucky this year to get a lot of moisture, but we tend to be in a drought most years. So I think it's important that we start preparing and building climate resiliency within our city, and to ensure that we have enough water retention, because Colorado is not only, you know, we're not using our water solely, we're sharing it with about 7 other states, a lot of agriculture, and it has a lot of it has a lot of consequences when we don't protect our environment. I think that's really something I'll bring forward to council, is making sure that Boulder is the most sustainable city possible.
Thank you. And Aaron?
Fantastic. Yeah, so as Ryan said, there's a lot of expertise on this, and we can lean on that. So it's so vital that we work to bring the experts to the table to do this. And yeah, as Waylon said, like, it is really heartening to see how much caring there is. And I've felt like this group of council candidates to be very collaborative, but like never more than on an issue like this. And I trust that we can continue to be collaborative. So yeah, what I want to say is, like, whether you vote for me, whether you vote for any of us, work with me, work with us. I have a feeling that whoever doesn't win in here is going to be very engaged, because we care about what's happening. So let's work together, whether we're on council or whether we're not. Let's work together. Let's stay in collaboration, because there's a lot of us here that care about this issue, and it's so vital that we move forward together on it. One of the things I really want to emphasize is the need of partnerships. This cannot happen in government alone. It has to happen in partnership with nonprofits, as well as with private for-profit businesses. There are a lot of people who are working on climate solutions and doing it from a good place. So let's tap into our network, figure out where people are really working on the right solutions, and how we can include them in what we're doing in Boulder to really create a model that the rest of the world can be inspired by.
Thank you. And Jenny?
Hello, thank you. Okay, so I just want to say, you know, climate change is already here. Climate action has to be addressed. We need to be more resilient. We need to harden our homes. We need more preventative measures in place for flood mitigation and emergency response. We need to create better lifestyles with more walkable neighborhoods and shady areas with the mature tree canopy. And we need to be leaders in this space. I mean, tonight, everyone on this panel they're so wonderfully passionate about this topic and have had some great ideas. Last night at our forum, someone said, gosh, I wish I could elect you all, because from the looks of it, you could get a lot done together, which would be great. I really do appreciate all of the people on this who are running for council and all of their passion for, especially in this space, for climate change in our environment. I come to this process from the perspective that everyone has something valuable to bring to every conversation. I think listening is so important, and these are the same values that I teach my kids. I want to thank you guys for having us today and giving us the time to discuss climate and energy policy. We definitely haven't done it at all to this extent so far, so this has been a nice, refreshing forum for sure. And thank you guys for all of the work that you do in our community on behalf of climate initiatives. It is very, very much appreciated.
Thank you. And Terri, you get to wrap this one up.
Great. So yesterday, a number of us met with the climate initiatives team, and in response to a question on fire preparedness, our fire chief said, "We are only as strong as our weakest link." I think this is a really important message that we have to take to heart. I have no doubt that Boulder will meet its climate goals. Maybe not on the timeline that we want, but we will be focused on our targets and will increasingly challenge our residents and businesses to make the lifestyle changes needed to achieve them. Boulder is leading edge on all of the societal issues that matter, and climate action will be no exception. But we can't solve this problem in a vacuum. We also have to be partnering with our regional and state agencies to make sure that we are all marching toward the same goal. The most powerful way to do this is to lead by example, which we do, but we also need to be proactively challenging other communities to follow our lead. We need persistent and relentless advocacy around these issues so that all communities treat this issue with the urgency that it demands. I think you've heard loud and clear tonight that, as everyone has said, we are in vehement agreement that we need to take action now and that we all want to be part of this solution. And I think with my leadership background and pragmatic approach, I can bring a data-informed approach here that will help us achieve these goals. But I think all of us are really well positioned to make a big dent in this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I want to extend, well, the obligatory but very heartfelt thanks to all of you guys for, taking the time, putting some energy into this too. I mean, you're all, pretty passionate about this stuff, and, you had to be on for this, and you did a good job, and I appreciate it.